Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 5 o'clock GMT Indigo Hack and Learn kickoff. We are just letting everyone in from the waiting room, and we'll get started in about 1 minute. Okay, I think we are here and ready to go. Hello, everyone. It is great to be here with you all today for the Hack and Learn kickoff, part 2. My name is Corey Zarek, and I am at Georgetown University. I'm the executive director of the Beck Center for Social Impact and Innovation, and we are a proud partner in this year's Indigo Hack and Learn event, hosted by a number of great partners this time around who will all introduce themselves individually, but we've got partnerships with the University of Oxford, the Go Lab, the Beck Center at Georgetown, INSPIR, the Bertha Center for Social Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the University of Cape Town, and Ashoka University. And Ashoka University's Center for Social Impact and Philanthropy. We also have partnership this year with the UK government's Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. Lots of great partners. We're really excited that you all could join us, and we're looking forward to seeing what happens with this year's Hack and Learn. I'm going to pass it over to our co-hosts so each can introduce themselves, and then we will jump right in to today's agenda.
Well, good afternoon to everybody. My name is Sandro Cabral. I co-direct INSPIR Matrices, which is an initiative towards social impact measurement at INSPIR. Is a leading private and non-profit institution in Brazil. I'm proud to be here with my colleague and friend Sergio Lazzarini. And echoing Corey, I'm looking forward to have interesting solutions for the major problems that we are facing through this Hack and Learn. Thanks so much for attending. Thanks so much for inviting us to be part of this important initiative.
I think it's me, yeah. So thank you all for being here. It's a great pleasure. I'd like to thank the Government Outcomes Lab for the invitation and the opportunity to partner. I think Sandro and I were colleagues and co-authors, so we co-direct this center INSPIR Matrices. I myself do research on impact-oriented strategies, both by public firms or private firms, and also through public-private collaborations and contracts. One of our big projects is the creation, like the Government Outcomes Lab. We also have an effort to map outcome-based contracts throughout the world and do research along those lines. So it's a great pleasure to be here with you. I mean, I think we're gonna have an excellent discussion. Thank you.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks everyone for joining this session. My name is Elena Carter. I'm the Research Director for the Government Outcomes Lab team. At the Go Lab, we are curious about outcomes-based commissioning, outcome contracts and impact bonds, and we really seek to bridge this gap between academia and policymaking. We're big supporters of INDIGO, and I'm really thrilled to join this session. Back to you, Corey.
Fantastic. All right. Well, we're recording this session, and it will be made available to folks to watch again or share with others who missed us today. So just for everyone's awareness. And we also want to hear from you. So keep that chat active. I'm going to ask us to practice that right now and drop into the chat an introduction. Who are you? Where are you from? Where are you joining us from today geographically? We have perhaps the most global Hack and Learn in the history of our Hack and Learns together taking place this time around, especially with partners from all over the world. And we'd love to hear from you all where you're from. So everyone just take a minute and drop in a hello and let us know where you're joining us from. Amazing. We've got some return hackers joining for a second go round. Sunny in Scotland, that feels like a milestone. Very exciting. All right, good to hear from so many of you from all over the place. Lots of folks from India and Brazil, of course, representing our co-host universities. So let's go ahead and get on with it. But do feel free to drop in any questions or comments into the chat as we go. We'll be keeping an eye on that. We'll respond either as we go, or we've got some time held for Q&A toward the end. So feel free to drop questions in at any time, and our team will be tracking that as we go. So I'm really excited to be co-chairing this year's event, because there is a lot to look forward to. And we have a really robust agenda ahead of us, kicking things off today, and then 2 weeks of very busy hacking with our groups working on some of these really exciting challenges that we're going to tell you about in a few minutes. And then we'll come back together in 2 weeks to share what we've learned and show off what we've built. And then we will continue plugging away and come back together again next month to see what comes from a formal report that we can all jam on together. So there's a lot of activity that we're kicking off today over the next couple of weeks and into the next month. But before we get ahead of ourselves, I actually wanted to be sure we reflect on some of the really exciting activities from the past Hack and Learns. And I wanted to hand it over to Elle, who can walk us through some of the highlights quickly before we get too far down the road on today's events.
Thanks very much, Corey. I thought I'd start by just saying a little bit about INDIGO, actually. I think we're describing ourselves as this emergent, very new data collaborative. So INDIGO, our full name, I think, is the International Network for Data on Impact and Government Outcomes. And really, we're a community of peers, people from different countries, different sectors, different policy domains, all with an interest in sharing data about projects that aim to address really complex social problems. My colleague Rory often describes us as having a bit of a pancake structure to what INDIGO is. So we have this community level, a system, and this data layer too. So Rory, do you want to talk about the pancakes?
Sure. So the pancake thing comes, I'm originally from Ireland, but I've been in the United States for the last almost 20 years, and I've developed a liking for blueberry pancakes. So I was thinking about this initiative. I was thinking about it on three layers, like 3 pancakes. And our top layer is the community. I'm building the community. That's just part of that. The middle layer is our thinking about the system, the people, processes, and tools around sharing information, sharing data, joining data up. And then the third level, the base sort of pancake where all the blueberries are, is our data layer. This is where we started with impact bonds. We're thinking about other data sets. We're thinking about how to connect these data sets, but this is where we're interested in these different types of data. But INDIGO is really about the data, the system around it, and the community. And this is part of that. We started this because really, we were Oxford researchers looking at impact bonds, and we realized that lots of different people are asking projects about similar kinds of things, and we thought we should be collaborating with practitioners around the types of data they need, with evaluators, with policymakers who've got questions, and trying to harmonize some data sets here, our data definitions. And then another thing that sort of emerged is that as we've got public and private and different types of organizations working on things like an impact bond, there might be different opinions around transparency. So our government colleagues are very used to sort of a transparency and open government agenda, whereas some of the new financial players might be less used to that. And so there's this idea of harmonizing community and cultural norms as well that's at play. Anyway, I'm very excited to be part of this, and looking forward to what's going to happen.
Thanks, Rory. I think I also wanted to really emphasize that we're calling this a hack and learn, and we're really a learning community here. We don't think we'll get everything right, and certainly not right first time, but we're really open to questioning, asking some smart questions, but also some maybe some silly questions, but that we're just really open to sharing ideas and exchanging energy and data and questions as a community. So yeah, you're all really welcome. I also wanted to share one of the reasons why I'm so excited for this hack and learn this year. I've got this real kind of giddy, nervous energy feeling. And in part, I think that's because we had such an incredible hack and learn back last year. So back in 2020, we had our first hack and learn, and we were joined by participants from all around the world. So we have people joining us from Australia, from India, from South Africa, Nigeria, France, Spain, Portugal, UK, Brazil, Colombia, US. We had an amazing range of participants, and we had participants who were policymakers, we had some data nerds, we had some coders, we had a real mix, and had a really fantastic time together working through some quite tough and specific challenge questions. So last year, the teams responded to 3 user challenges. Firstly, we thought about how to describe and visualize the market for impact bonds. So thinking about the network of organizations that had been involved in impact bonds around the world. Our second challenge was to think about how the payable outcomes in impact bond projects connected to the Sustainable Development Goals. So how did these SDGs relate to some of the impact bond projects? And the third challenge was to adopt, develop, and test a social investor and fund manager data prototype to bring more social investment data into the world. So those hack teams had just 1 week. They were using Slack channels to hack, to share questions, to pass visuals and ideas across to one another. In just 1 week, there were some amazing prototypes that were developed. So team 1 in this left panel here, you can see this beautiful network diagram. So this connects homelessness projects. In the US, you can see the threads that connect different organizations and different actors around those homelessness projects and really get a sense of this network of organizations. In the middle pane, you can see the output from team 2. So you've got this Sankey diagram connecting the Sustainable Development Goals to the outcomes that were used on particular local projects. And then team 3 really went to town building out a spreadsheet for social investors to contribute really granular data so that they could show how their investments were being used in different projects over time. So I thought that would give you a flavour of what was achieved in just 1 week. But then after the hack and learn, we also worked to integrate these artifacts into the INDIGO website that's hosted by the Go Lab. So we brought in the investment timelines that you can see here, and now they're still live on the Go Lab website. So those timelines are being built up and added to over time. And then you can see these networks. We've worked to really embed those network maps, so you can now see them for different policy areas and different projects, all of the connections between those organizations. So huge thanks to our hack crew from last time around, and hopefully that gives you a taste of what's to come.
Thanks, Elle. Really exciting. So just to reiterate, those first 3 hack teams are still going strong. They're still jamming together and collaborating, and those projects, those problem statements are still very active and very alive. And I think that is one of the things that's so exciting to me about this hack and learn model. Probably like many of you, I have been part of more hackathons or hack type events than I can even keep track of. And the number of those hack groups that are still jamming and still in touch and still working together is not many, probably 0 that I can think of. And so it's so exciting to have this new model and new approach where we're building up a learning community all together, where we can co-create solutions and exciting ideas and continue to build on them over time. So we are really excited to keep those first 3 hack teams and problem statements going and add at least 9 more this year. So it is going to be a busy couple of weeks. At least we've bumped it out to 2 weeks to work on these projects, but it's going to be a busy couple of weeks as we have a lot of really exciting ideas. So while we plan ahead for that, and I'm going to kind of tee up all these different hack teams in a moment to present their ideas, we also are open to other ideas. This is a really active community. And again, we're all about co-creation here. So if you have a suggestion, if you have a problem statement, a challenge that might not be reflected in these first now 12 ideas, you can feel free to pitch your own idea today, and we can add it to the mix and create a hack team 13 or beyond. So if you do have an idea or a problem statement challenge that you've been noodling on and would like to introduce it as part of this Hack and Learn effort, drop a message into the chat and we will add you to the agenda so that you can pitch your idea here as well. So one thing I will also recommend as we go, we are recording this session. You can revert back to it if you need to check and see what might be a good fit for you, but highly encourage you to take some notes because we're going to move fast and we're going to ask you to pick one of these great challenge areas by the end of this session so that you can join up with that Slack group and waste no time in getting started. So do consider taking some notes, drop any questions into the chat, and we'll hold time toward the end so we can revisit any questions so that you can make a great choice about how to spend your next 2 weeks hacking and learning with this community. Alrighty, so next things next. First up, we have Fernando, who is going to talk with us about a new phase of work with social outcomes and the sustainable development goals. Fernando, will you tell us more about your challenge?
Hello all, so thank you very much for joining us. I'm really happy to be here and hope that you're going to be interested about this challenge. The pitch was organized together with Clara, Icaro, and Juliana. So the main idea is to explore the alignment between outcome-based contracts and the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, and to further investigate the interplay of such a relationship with stakeholders' motivations. But this is sort of too complex. So more specifically, which are the problems and challenges here? First, are OBCs connecting stakeholders towards a long-term orientation of SDGs? So we think that the identification of replicable and scalable practices that foster this alignment between OBCs and SDGs remains a pending problem. There's a lot to do here. And who face such challenges? Basically, everyone that is involved with these contracts that currently addresses SDGs or are willing to do that in the near future. Basically, we have OBCs worldwide, right? As my colleagues just said, according to the ISPER matrices dataset, we have more than 300 contracts. And these contracts differ in the way that they tackle SDGs. For instance, we may have one contract that addresses the goal regarding reducing poverty, but also goals related to health and education. But what are other things behind these contracts? Contracts are not easily comparable. We may have different stakeholders per contract. So, for instance, the provider, investor, evaluator, outcome payer, that is government in the case of social impact bonds, and so on. Most importantly, the targeted population, the ones that are affected by the results of contracts also. It doesn't stop there. Contracts also differ regarding their design features. We might have more expensive contracts with different outcome metrics, evaluation methods. We may have RCTs or any other sort of counterfactual assessments or not, duration. So they differ in several dimensions. Basically, considering all these, what we expect from you in this Hack and Learn? The idea is to better recognize the linkages between OBCs and SDGs by investigating these distinct features regarding their design and the stakeholders involved. So here we have 4 main questions, but of course that you don't need to narrow to them. It's an open discussion that you may bring us your own questions. So as our first suggestion, what these contracts have already done in terms of SDGs, what are the stakeholders' main motivations, why, if there are any SDGs that are left aside, and the fourth one that is more open and calls for an innovative strategy to tackle, what are potentially unforeseen synergies that might be useful for engaging stakeholders. Summing up, if you wrap up all of these, our main goals relate to understand how to engage stakeholders so we can provide guidance on replicable and scalable practices that align OBCs with the UN SDGs. But how? How would you do that? Basically, we provide two ideas of ways to go. So we have the INDIGO Impact Bond dataset and also Informatrices dataset on OBCs. These cover several information regarding the SDGs that contracts address, stakeholder features, including but not limited to investors and impact evaluators, target areas that vary from education to housing and social care, amount of investment, and other several information. So here, just as an example, we have the prototype, please, the slide before, just to, the prototype from last year, the Hack and Learn last year. The team developed a prototype linking different contracts with the SDGs, and we would like you to go beyond that, to complement this data set and also bring innovative ideas of this relationship. As I said before, we could be talking about stakeholders and other contract features. So we are looking forward to working with you. Hope that you are be engaged towards this challenge. And if you have any doubts, of course, I'm here to help you. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Fernando and the INSPIR team. If you have questions for Fernando, feel free to drop them into the chat. I already see one coming in. We'll come back to those later. All righty, next up, we are going to hear about user voice challenge from the Go Lab.
Hi there, so Lee here. Nice to see everyone this evening. So I'm going to be discussing, obviously, user voice. So next slide, please. So this is my big pitch. This is the slide I really want to focus on. This is an emerging field for the Hack and Learn team and the INDIGO team. User voice has been muted as a potential area of interest for a number of people, and Francisco and I have been thinking about this for quite a bit of time now, but not in a kind of systematic or researchy way. So this is our pitch to say, we'd love you to get involved. We don't know quite what this will look like, but that's really exciting opportunity for you guys to shape in a real co-production way what will happen. It's obviously daunting as well that we don't have a clear vision of what's going to happen, but we anticipate something exciting will happen. So next slide. So Francisco has pulled together this set of touch points where a service user might touch a program over the course of its life cycle. So we have this vision in our head that we might want to, over this coming 2 weeks, to collect information where projects touch the service users and collect that in a systematic way over the coming weeks. And then really think about how could that evidence or that data be used for research purposes or for evidence-based policy making as well. So the next slide. So what we're going to do is have a kickoff meeting either Monday or Tuesday, depending on people's availability, and just really start to brainstorm out exactly what this might look like in terms of a work stream and a set of outputs. And as I said in my earlier slide, this is a real opportunity for people to come in and shape this emerging field of research for the INDIGO team, and just stamp your own kind of vision of what this might look like there. And then I've already touched upon it as well, this idea that we've got this simple research tool that we use to capture where projects might be collecting this information and how might we describe this for the purposes of research and evidence-based policy making. And then we're kind of really open up to other ideas about where we might take this beyond the next 2 weeks as well and make it tangible and useful for the broader INDIGO community. So next slide. I think we go over this in a couple of towards the end of this meeting anyway, but these are the ways to get in touch with us. And we've already got 12 members of the team now, so you're going to be within good company, and just come and join us.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lee. You heard it here. They've already got 12 members on this team, so no pressure, other pitchers, but be sure you're really selling hard. Build up your own teams. All right, next we're going to stick with the Go Lab, and we'll hear from Rory McDonald, who will talk with us about his procurement data challenge.
Oh, I have 14 already. Anyway, so sorry. Not that we're being competitive about this, we're all collaborating. Welcome to Hack Team 6. We are interested in open contracting, and we're interested in this idea that governments and philanthropy are awarding outcomes contracts. We are looking at the 204 impact bonds that exist in the impact bond data set. We know that these are obviously happening on different timelines and from different places, but happily, there's something called the Open Contracting Data Standard, which is a free and open way of describing data and documents for public procurement and government contracts and beyond. We have seen that Open Contracting Data Standard, OCDS, is a helpful way to look at sort of pre-award documents and connect those with post-award documents, and of course the contract itself. If we go to the next slide, one of the helpful things about the Open Contracting Data Standards, it's sort of buckets things in these very helpful 5 buckets: planning, initiation, award, the contract itself, implementation. And so that there are sort of established ways that we can put information and documents into these different buckets. And many countries have already made commitments and have already got systems that frame the information in this way. And it's relatively easy to take information and make it available in our own data set or link back to it. There are many different open sort of data initiatives in procurement. All of them use OCDS, some of them do. These various initiatives include TED, which is the European Tenders Electronic Daily. We've seen a lot of the UK impact bonds in particular appearing on TED, impact bonds from different places. Also around Europe appear on TED. So getting that procurement information and connecting that is something we want to do. There are various states in the United States where there are sort of results-based contracting happening. There is also, lots of places around the world. Actually, Colombia has got a new system based on the Open Contracting Data Standard that's fascinating as well. So we're in this group. We'll be pulling information about public procurement and contracts and trying to make these data all more available. And we have a wonderful first meeting set up tomorrow, where we have the wonderful people from the Open Contracting Partnership, who are the stewards of the Open Data Contracting Standard, Open Contracting Data Standard. They're going to come and give us some tips so we can set up and be well on our way starting tomorrow.
Excellent. Already off and running. Very exciting. All right. And feel free to keep any questions coming or friendly taunts in the chat. And we'll press on to our next hack team. Hack Team 7 is back to our friends at INSPIR. And we will hear about this Education for Girls Challenge from Icaro Bernardis.
So, hi everyone. I'm Icaro, and I'm joined by Fernando and Clara. And I'm here for claim your hearts and your minds towards our team to our challenge of puzzles for measuring outcomes for girls' education projects. And this is a challenge indeed. As you can see in the left of your screen, there are some priorities in outcome measurement that they do not easily fit together, because those priorities compete with each other and creating tension in outcome measurement. However, we can see that girls' education projects, they also have some priorities that are equally important and bringing even more complexity to this process. In the next slide, we can see that this struggle is quite real. And we bring an example from Brazil, that is the Girls on Data Science project. And in this project, we have some problems that are quite real, such as small n for statistical analysis, English being the main language in data science, the measurement of soft skills in things like teaching for social justice, and so on, so many problems. And being those problems quite concrete, we want you to help us to make, to bring solutions to this field. And
so what do we need? We have 4 main questions that are what to measure, how to measure, what has already been done in this field, and which innovative ideas we can add to it. But as these are not very specific, we also have some more that are which are socially and financially effective ways of measuring outcomes in girls' education. Would gender separation, for example, as already happens in some private schools in Mexico and the US, be easier to the measurement process? What are the long-term implications of girls' education? Are they gonna have better salaries? And how can important topics that are also taboos can be taught and discussed in classes? For example, sexual education, domestic violence, and the limit between girls' education and public health. In the next slide, we can see how you can address this challenge. We have 2 main sources that are the INDIGO datasets and the INSPIR dataset, where you all can find information about OBCs regarding to education, social care, and women. And we also have Girls on Data Science, the annual report from 2019. We bring here some suggestions, but there are plenty fish in the sea, and you really should go for it. But the suggestions we bring here are what works in girls' education from Barbara Hurst and Jane Sperling. I Am Malala from Malala. Women, Culture and Politics from Angela Davis. That's iconic by herself. And History of Gender Relations by Peter Stearns. And we expect you guys from our group to reun all insights the way you like it better. It can be in a PowerPoint presentation, in a text document, or in a spreadsheet. And if possible and applicable, that's gonna be great if you can bring to us an infographic. But feel free to use your creative. We thank you so much for your time and attention, and we look forward to work with you guys. We already have 20 people in our team, and you are more than welcome.
Thank you, thank you. All right, consider joining Hack Team 7. What are we on now? 7? There's so many to work on this really exciting issue with a whole host of other collaborators. Okay. Thank you so much. All righty. Next, for our Hack Team 8 pitch, we are going to hear from Nora Ma from the Beck Center for Social Impact and Innovation here at Georgetown. Nora, tell us about the challenge you're working on around vaccination rates in the US.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nora, and I'm a student analyst at the Beck Center for Social Impact at Georgetown University, and I work with Corey. So challenge number 8 is on vaccination data and the household pulse survey. So vaccination data will be provided by the CDC, and the household pulse survey is provided by the US Census Bureau. Next slide, please. This is just an introduction about the Beck Center, and we hope that you stay connected with us throughout this Hack and Learn and after. Next slide, please. So within the vaccination data provided by the CDC, we want to kind of explore the relationship between who's getting vaccinated and other household pulse survey indicators. So this includes things like employment status, food sufficiency, reasons why people don't want to take the vaccine, people who are able or unable to make rent, and questions about difficulty paying for usual spending items. So we're really interested in the intersection between the people who are getting vaccinated and the people who are within these categories. I work with a fellow who works closely with the census, and something that we have found out is that different regions of the United States experience natural disasters and pandemics in very different ways. So we were wondering if we were able to find any type of relationship or perhaps a correlation between vaccination data and these other kind of areas of indicators. So the household pulse survey is something that's provided by the US Census. When we think about the US Census, we're usually thinking about the decennial census that happens every 10 years and is mandated by the US Constitution. But the US Census Bureau actually does a lot more. They do something called the American Community Survey, which is conducted every year and helps determine federal and state spending and funding for each state. And they also conduct the household pulse survey. So the household pulse survey is a little new. It was enacted kind of in late October of 2020, and it has been updated regularly since then. And it measures things including access to education, food sufficiency, and the ability to make rent. So those kinds of things are indicators for how the average American household is doing. Next slide, please. So our goals are to learn more about the data sets available from the US Census. We were actually thinking about being able to make a map that overlays the household pulse survey data with the vaccination rate data that has been made available. That will help us kind of be able to see whether there are any relationships or correlations that may indicate something about how the US is managing distribution. And we really hope that you guys are able to work with other policymakers and data lovers to be able to understand vaccination impact better. Finding and understanding disparities in vaccination distribution is another broad goal of ours. And kind of the last one is having fun and being able to engage with other people and learning from others in this community. Something that we want to reiterate is that the map proposal is not something that we are sticking to very closely. We are happy to accommodate other ideas and proposals that are related to vaccination data and the household pulse survey. And we also want to reiterate that this data is actually public. So if you visit the US Census website and if you visit the CDC website, you can actually be able to find this data on your own time after this hack and learn. So please do access that as well. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to meeting everyone in our Slack channel, and I'll send out a doodle poll soon to set up our first meeting.
Thank you, Nora. I'm very excited for folks to scrub in with us at the Beck Center on this really important and exciting challenge around vaccination rates in the United States. All right, thank you, thank you. All right, next to hack team number 8 is back to the Go Lab, and we'll hear from Ruby, who's going to pitch the Impact Wayfinder Challenge.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I am Ruby. I am a research assistant at the Go Lab here at Oxford, and I'm really excited to talk to you about this Hack and Learn Challenge, which is on this social impact wayfinder. So next slide, please. So around June last year, I set out to basically create a guide to help impact practitioners measure their social impact or different types of impact. And what I found was when I started doing research that tons of guides and tools and resources already exist, and that in fact, it's already incredibly confusing to navigate this environment. So I decided to create a tool along with some lovely people on this call. And we're trying to create an interactive interface that will help practitioners actually navigate this landscape. And the idea would be that, next slide, that we ask them 5 general questions. And at the end of those questions, the tool spits out a list of custom resources that are actually in some way applicable to their organization. So this will take into account these 5 questions. What sector are they in? When is the analysis taking place, or where in the project are they? What is the goal of impact that they're trying to measure? What's the scale that they're trying to measure? And what do they want the output to look like? Next slide. And I'm excited to say that we already have a prototype live on the INDIGO website, which you can go look at it now, but here is a screenshot of what it looks like. You click through these 5 questions, and next slide, please. This is what the output looks like. So you have a list of all the different resources that are available to you. We currently have 204 resources in the tool, but we are always looking to add more if you have ones that you don't see reflected. Next slide, please. So for the Hack and Learn, it really depends a lot on the type of people that we have sign up. I'm really excited about the team we have so far, but I would really love to have a lot more people. And depending on who signs up, it just can really influence the type of work that we want to do. The goal ultimately is to make this tool the best it can be and to make it actually something useful that practitioners can refer to. The INDIGO website gets a lot of traffic, and I think that we could actually make this a useful tool for people. But what I really want, depending on whether you have a lot of expertise or you're a beginner, you might be able to tell us how this tool can help, whether it spits out the right tools or the tools that you would expect, whether it's easy for beginners to use, whether it just works technically, all sorts of different questions that we could talk through. And the output would just be that we have a better tool on the other end that you guys have had an active hand in helping to develop, and that you can get a first look into this new resource that I really hope will be helpful for practitioners all around the world. So that is the Hack and Learn challenge for us, and I definitely encourage you to go check out the tool, which I will put the link in the group chat here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruby and Hack Team 9. All right, very exciting. Next up, I think we lost our slides. Next up, we have Gautam from Ashoka University, who's going to pitch actually 2 different challenges, one on visualizing different philanthropy inflows in India, and one about the Indian NGO ecosystem database.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I think Gautam couldn't be here. I think it's really late in India right now.
Of course.
So what we're going to do is we're going to play the recording from this morning. So bear with me until I share my screen.
Yeah, I sent it to Martina. Okay, I can share the slides. No worries.
Great, thanks so much. Oh, here we go, perfect. So you've got a great challenge around standardizing the Indian NGO ecosystem service provider database. Over to you, Gautam.
Hi all, I'm Gautam, the challenge coordinator from the Center for Social Impact and Philanthropy, the same organization Bindi works for. And one of the challenges that we have for the really detail-oriented folks out there is this challenge with standardizing the Indian NGO ecosystem service provider database. Next slide. So as Bindi has already covered, we at CSIP are trying to help the Indian nonprofit ecosystem, and we basically work in 3 verticals: research, convening, and capacity building. Next slide, please. So in India, much like the informal sector, the nonprofit sector is sort of heavily unorganized, and if you could say the word. And a lot of nonprofits usually rely on service delivery organizations in order to get their critical work across. However, there is no centralized repository for the same. And we at CSIP went about to sort of collate that central repository of all ecosystem service providers across the 28 states in India. And we basically have done this. However, there are a few challenges that we'd like to enlist the team here who'd like to take this challenge up. Basically, the challenge is to sort of help standardize the entire database, correct at the erroneous entries, if you will, and sort of bring it to a version 1. And of course, basis the proficiency and the expertise of the team, the final goal is to sort of take this on to a portal wherein users would be able to access the data. Next slide. As I said earlier, we have the existing list of ecosystem service providers. What we could do is we invite you to sort of go over the data, sort of discuss optimal ways of standardizing the data set whilst not losing any important crucial detail, and also execute them. The completed data set, as I said, would be a sort of a Craigslist, if you will, of service providers for the Indian NGO ecosystem. Other projects that I've heard so far are about impact measurement, but this is more about impact creation, because this would allow NGOs to have a repository for service providers and not be restricted to their personal networks. And of course, we'd like to sort of keep it open-ended. Should you want to explore other avenues of how you'd like to utilize this data set, you feel free to reach out to me and we could have a discussion. And the next slide, please. And I've shared the dataset link there, and some basic instructions as well. That's it. Next slide. Yeah, we've been Hack Team 10, the NGO Ecosystem Challenge, and that's about it from my side.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Gautam. Really exciting to hear about this impact creation potential through this service provider detail. So thank you very much for setting that out for us. And I think you're also making a further pitch, visualizing foreign philanthropy inflows to India. Thank you.
Yeah. So the way we sort of approached ideating challenges for this Hack and Learn event was to sort of keep it open-ended for even a person with zero experience to sort of come in and pitch and give in their time and sort of learn aspects of it. So keeping that in mind, our second challenge is for the more visually or the creative oriented ones, people who like sort of visualizations. You can skip this slide. Yeah. So the main problem around this that we're trying to address is credibility. We at CSIP have sort of collated data on all the foreign funding that the Indian philanthropy sector has received. And to any layman who has sort of gone over the data, it is very sort of apparent that the philanthropic funds have done good. But however, this viewpoint is restricted only to the people who have spent the time and gone over the data. For the public at large, this is still sort of a large hocus pocus mumbo jumbo sort of sector that they cannot understand. So at this point of time, we are inviting teams to sort of come in, review the data set that we have, the Foreign Contributions Regulations Act data set that we have, and sort of come up with intuitive, cool visualizations that make it really apparent to the public as to what are the impact that these foreign funds have sort of had on the social sector in India. Next slide, please. As I said, we have sort of collated the publicly available data on philanthropic flows over the years in India, including foreign funding. We invite teams to sort of go over the data, try to visualize either the data set itself or any subset of the data, or use the data set in relation to any other publicly available data set in intuitive ways that could sort of enable a credibility narrative to be established in terms of how foreign funds are actually helping the social sector in India. As I said earlier, feel free to sort of discuss with us should you feel the need to modify the challenge, and I've attached the details. That's about it from my side.
Thank you so much, Gautam. And I can.
Okay, well, thank you. So glad we had the videos. Indeed, it is quite late in India. So 2 different challenges there from our friends at Ashoka University, Hack Team 10 and Hack Team 11, which brings us now finally to Hack Team 12, where we will hear from Zach Levy from the Lavoca Impact Lab, who's going to pitch our final challenge on an impact bond pipeline or nursery. Tell us more, Zach.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zach Levy. I'll be co-chairing the challenge with Mara from GoLab. So I'm the executive director of Lavoca. We're an innovative finance advisory firm, and one of our work streams has been to serve as the secretariat of the Impact Bonds Working Group. And the group is a mix of bilateral agencies, multilateral development organizations and industry players who have come together since 2018 to look at how outcomes-based financing can be a more scalable and cost-effective for the SDGs. And so when we think about impact bonds, groups like GoLab and Brookings Institution have been quite good at collecting information on projects that have launched. But when we think about all those projects that are being developed, all those investment opportunities that are being developed, there's a lot less information, and particularly in the public domain. And while groups like Brookings Institution have collected some of that in 2015, there really hasn't been a systematic way of doing it. And so last year, through the working group, we did a first pass at trying to capture this wider pipeline of projects that are being developed in this under this umbrella of outcomes-based financing. And so when we think about why this is important, at least for this type of market, it allows us to see what's coming up. It allows different actors to identify synergies. It serves as market intelligence. And also from a learning perspective, it also allows us to not only follow those projects that have launched, but also to start to learn about and see those projects that may not have launched or that are taking longer to launch, and trying to understand a little bit better the why. Now, this has challenges. These projects are evolving, and there's also quite a lot of commercial sensitivities around putting this information out there in the public domain. And so when we think about this challenge, we invite all of you to think about and join us in helping us think through really how do we align the definitions and standardize those definitions with this wider effort that's going on in GoLab on the projects that have launched, so we can really track them across that development continuum. Also thinking through a little bit, what projects really count as projects that are really being developed and in the pipeline or in the nursery, and which ones aren't. If projects are there for 2 years and haven't launched, should they be out? Should they stay in? What are those criteria? And as well as really, really important topics like how do you collect this information in an open, transparent, and usable way, but also take into account those commercial sensitivities that are very important for getting the key stakeholders to provide that information. So we really welcome all of you to join us and help us think through some of these issues and think through what types of tools and templates we might want to use as we think about undertaking this effort for a second time later this year.
All right, thank you, Zach and team. We are, I think, finally through all of these incredible hack pitches. So great to hear from so many of you, and a lot of really exciting challenges to work on, and big teams already forming. So we will take a few minutes to take questions and talk through next steps. And I wanted to hand it over to Elle, who will take us away from here.
Thanks, Corey. Thanks so much for all of those amazing pitches. This is your chance to ask questions or throw out provocations, ask for more detail from the teams who have just pitched now. So I picked up a few questions from the chat, but you can also ask more questions by raising your hands or by putting a question into the chat, and I will come to you. Shirley, I noticed, asked a couple of questions. One question particularly about the outcome contract data, and I wondered whether someone from INSPA might be able to talk a little bit about the data set that you have available on all of these social outcome contracts around the world.
Yeah, of course. May I? Sergio, Sandro, if I can share a little bit more information. So basically, as Elle answered at the chat, it's a bigger data set in the sense that we included not only concluded contracts, but also in design, being implemented, and discontinued contracts. We have information on the SDGs that they address and several features on the stakeholders involved. So the investors, impact evaluator, service provider, as well as payment structure if it involves any sort of counterfactual assessment, amount of investment, and all regarding the challenge for girls education, for instance. I believe it's useful because we have the targeted area. So one might check if the contract relates to education, perhaps even girls education more specifically, or women, and so on. So it's a quite broad data set. Of course, that the same as INDIGO, we have a lot of missings, and we are indeed willing to have your help in aggregating data to our own. If you have any other questions, please, I'm more than glad to answer.
Thanks very much, Fernando. That's really helpful to get a bit more of a sense of the type of data that you have around these social outcome contracts. Shirley has lots of questions, actually. So Shirley, I wonder, could I come to you to ask the questions that you've been posting?
Yes, I'm a big question asker. So I did have a question for Ruby just about the tool, and the tool that is being proposed. Is this about identifying, based upon those characteristics that you currently have in your assessment, then kind of matching resources, potential resources to those organizations based upon how they are characterized?
Yes. So essentially I started from, I try to think from the perspective of a certain practitioner, whether they are in the public sector or the charity sector or whatever, and try to think what type of resources are they looking for and what type of resources would actually be relevant for them. So the resources are things like impact frameworks or software tools or I don't know, lots of different valuation structures and different things that people can use depending on the type of evaluation they want, the level of granularity they need, and all sorts of things like that. And then it will spit out a list of more customized resources depending on what applies to them.
Thanks, Ruby. Thanks, Shirley. So this world of impact measurement is enormous and very sort of impenetrable for new people into the space. So I think this is a really exciting tool to make the idea of measuring impact a bit more accessible, and the idea of supporting people to do that sounds like a fantastic challenge. Shirley, I think you also had another question. We love questions and we love you, Shirley. So thanks for coming back for this second Hack and Learn. Did you want to ask your challenge of Hack Team 12?
Oh, yes. Yes, it was just about whether you were identifying, well, let's see, is the goal to identify projects that are in this kind of infancy stage and study them for whatever, whatever comes up through it and gain some insights. And then the second question was whether there were any incubator type organizations for some social impact projects that are kind of getting people introduced to them as a potential funding structure for what they're trying to accomplish. Because there are obviously lots of incubators in other sectors for innovation and the for-profit sector.
I can take the first half about what we want to achieve on this hack, and then maybe Zach can reply on, is there an incubator for this type of projects? So at the moment, the information about projects that are in development is very sparse. There is a group called the Impact Bond Working Group that last year collected information on existing projects on a voluntary basis. And what we want to do in the next week is to come up with a clear data model that then we can collect data about and do analysis on. And the data model is about what is this data set for? What is the insight that we want to generate? So following from that, which data do we want to collect, and can we agree a standard definition of data? And if at some point some of these projects will graduate from a pipeline to launch programs, so we don't want to have too much of a discrepancy in data definition for those who migrate into launch. But there is a decision, like how do we manage the data sensitivities, what makes sense to advertise before, because they're very fluid projects. Once they are launched, there is a contract, and so things are set in stone. But before, what we want to share, and we really don't know. So we are reaching out to the community of users. What do you want to know about this project? And of people involved in developing the project, what do you think you can share? And so we want to engage in a conversation, and the output is a prototype data model. And then in the Hack and Learn in September, if we agree data model, maybe we can start over the summer to collect data for projects, and then we can do some data analysis on those. But Zach, I don't know if there is an incubator on impact bonds. You might know.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, and just a compliment. I mean, I think the purpose of the exercise, at least, I look at it from has two. You can look at it in two ways. One is playing, market intelligence so that different industry actors can use that information to better understand what's going on and compare benchmarks. The other is through that market intelligence, also some of the potential learning that can hive off of that to really understand why certain projects are moving forward and not. And so having that information and collecting it is quite useful when you think about the wider market development, both from a very narrow operational standpoint, but also from the wider research and learning. I think from the incubator side of it, when we think about this, I don't know if the word market or ecosystem, there's different types of players out there, and you have a range of different advisory firms that are kind of playing this role on a case-by-case basis that are working with different actors to incubate projects and make them investable. In certain countries, like the UK, you've had a number of different initiatives, such as I think it was called the Impact Contract Readiness Fund, that was very UK focused. Our focus in our work and the Impact Bonds Working Group is really focused on emerging markets and developing countries. And so what we've been working on, and I think the Impact Bonds Working Group, one of their key recommendations has been there's a need for we're calling it an outcomes accelerator, and really focused on this and really trying to accelerate the development of these projects. I think accelerator is a better word than incubator, in that part of our goal is to move away from slow. We want to make these projects much quicker and easier to launch versus an incubator, which has a much longer time and gestation period. And so that outcomes accelerator initiative is very much one of the key recommendations. We're hopeful that it actually may be coming online as a prototype or pilot, or minimum viable product is probably the better word, sometime later this year, that we can then refine it and really think through how that can really use this type of pipeline information to then accelerate those potential projects and ideas. Thanks for the question.
Thanks very much, Zach, for describing a bit more of the detailed thinking around that. That's really helpful. Sergio, I see that you have your hand up. Can I come to you?
Yeah, and I'm not really sure because I'm a co-host here. I don't know if I should ask questions here or just stimulate the debate. But anyway, so thank you all for the great presentations. I love it. I mean, I think we have a very interesting set of projects. But I'd like to just emphasize this project by Zach. I think it is really, really important, and really glad to see Zach again. I mean, we collaborated in the design of a contract here in Brazil in education. So it was kind of an incubator in a sense here for this ecosystem here in Brazil. It was an incubation. The contract eventually was not launched, but we wrote a case. I mean, it inspired some bills, some legal propositions that are being discussed in the Congress, and it eventually inspired other initiatives. One of them was launched, right? Was launched eventually. So this is really, really important because this incubation process generates a lot of learning. Even if projects are not launched, I think we should keep track of those projects because they involve discussions. They can help with the design part and everything. So congrats on all projects and this one also. Thanks.
I hope that wasn't favoritism from a host.
I think it just shows how exciting it is to think about all of this activity that goes on before an impact bond is launched. Ruby, I see that you have your hand up now too.
Hi, yes, I'll lower it. So it's not necessarily my own question, but in the earlier session today, we had someone ask a question about whether they can join a team if they have a lower level of expertise or if they're still just starting out in the field. And I just wanted to call out that if anyone is thinking that question, yes, please do. We would love to have not just my team, but any of these hack teams would love to have people of all different levels of expertise and all different sorts of interests. So please please think about joining at least one team because we would love to have you and it'll be really fun.
That's a great point, Ruby. Yeah, everyone is welcome here. You don't have to be a coding specialist or a subject specialist. Your curiosity, your energy, your questions are all part of what makes the Indigo community great and a fun place to be. So everyone is very welcome. That's also a helpful segue, I think, into the support that people might need. And so I'd like to introduce James and Martin and Martina to say hello and talk a little bit about the support that they might be able to provide.
Hi everyone, Martina Di Folco. I'm a data steward here at the Go Lab, and I will be basically one of the people that you can contact on Slack if you have any help. So you can see here, along with the hack teams for the individual challenges, we have also set up a hack channel for technical help. So if you are joining now Slack, in addition to your hack team or hack teams, please do join the technical help channel so that you can ask us questions if you have any queries regarding the process or regarding the outputs of your challenges, or if you need any help with, for example, data visualization techniques. We are very lucky to have James and Martin here, and they'll be able to help you with that. If I may, since I saw one question regarding Slack, we have added here kind of a couple of useful screenshots for you to see what the process is like for signing up onto the Slack teams. So when you click on the link, you will be taken to a page that will ask you to put in your email, and you'll be sent a confirmation code to your email. After you've done that, you'll be asked to put in some basic details, your name and your surname and your email again, I think. After which you will be able to kind of enter the Go Lab Slack channels. So you can see here that on your left, you will have all of the teams. If you don't see them, that's totally fine. Don't panic. So if you hover with your mouse near channels, there will be a plus that appears. And if you click on that plus, you'll be able to select Browse Channels from the window menu here. And when you do, you will be shown the list of all of the channels that you can join. Otherwise, you can also use the search bar at the top of your screen to look for the hack team or hack teams of your choice. So if you put in hack team, for example, you can see hack team 3 from the previous Hack and Learn, hack team 1 from the previous Hack and Learn, and some of the other hack teams. So I will go back to the original slide where you can see all of the numbers and the names for the hack teams. And I hope that this was useful. If you have any other questions, drop them in the chat, and I will pass on to James and Martin to say hello.
Hello. So I'm James Baster. I'm based up in Scotland. I work for Open Data Services Co-op. We're a workers co-op, and we work on many different data standards, all with the aim of making open data useful, usable, and in use. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what everyone does over 2 weeks. I've done a lot of work on the Indigo data model, so I'm here to answer any questions about that and to help you get and use the data. You can find me on Slack, especially in the help channel mentioned there, and have fun.
Hello, I'm Martin Swarbrick. I work for Plump, and we've been working on the Indigo website for a few years now, for GoLab and Indigo. I've been recently working with Ruby on the Impact Wave Finder prototype, and we've been working on the visualizations and bringing James's data across into the GoLab website to produce the network plots and the Sankey diagrams from the last Hack and Learn. Look forward to working with you all. I'll be hanging around in the Slack channels as well. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much. It's really great to know that we've got all of this technical support waiting in the wings. If we need a particular data set, if we're struggling to blend different data sets together or think about manipulating things, that you guys can help us think through some of that. So thank you very much for joining us for the next 2 weeks. Okay, so hopefully you've got a hack team or maybe more in mind. There's a conversation in the chat going on about which hack team shall I choose? Can I join more than one? Just to let you know, you are very welcome to join more than one of these teams. You can join several if you would like to. So go in through Slack as Martina described, and you can join these hack teams there. The only thing that is left for me to say is have fun. I hope everyone enjoys the next 2 weeks. We'll all be online, checking in, bumping ideas, sharing questions. So hope to see you there. We can hang back, the INDIGO team, the core team will hang back in case you have any more detailed questions that you'd like to have answered. But yeah, this is a really exciting 2 weeks. So looking forward to seeing what we cook up.
Yay, thank you.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks so much for all of the challenge champions.